Hi folks, this is Cold Warrior 78 again, back out in the woods. I'm actually at a different location than you normally see me at. I like to call this my secret desert training facility. As you can see behind me, I was camped out in the pickup truck last night, but this is not the southeast where you normally see me. If you look over my shoulder, you'll see some very interesting terrain. Let me pan this around so you can actually see where I am. What you see before you is a very ancient western red cedar. I'll give you a perspective of this tree. It's considerably wider than I am. That kind of width and a very dry environment tells me that tree is between 900 and 1,000 years old. As I continue to pan around, I hold it here for a moment. The ridge which you see in front of you, this is all national forest area. That mountain, the edge of the mountain behind you, is in the Superstition Wilderness area. Now, Superstition Wilderness area is in Arizona. It's in central Arizona, just outside of Phoenix, actually. There are some very rugged mountains out here. I'm in the end that is a little bit taller. That's the eastern side. So you have these wonderful pines and cedars out here. As you get lower in elevation in the desert is where you get the very hot, dry, scrubby, what people think of as the desolate kind of desert. But in fact, when you get up into the hills and the mountains, there's all kinds of trees and plant life, and of course animal life as well. There are cougars out here, deer, javelina, all manner of wild animals. It's a really cool place. I get the chance to come out here once a year because my business brings me out here in the wintertime. Not a bad business. Unfortunately, business being what it is, you can't run off to the wilderness area all the time. But every time I get a couple hours, man, I run right out here. Now, like I said, I'm in the national forest area, right outside of the wilderness area. I wouldn't be able to bring the truck, obviously, into a wilderness area. In a little bit, I'm going to pack everything up here, drive down to the trailhead a little ways down here, and go camping, or actually go hiking up into the wilderness. And then I have to go back today because, unfortunately, I got to work tomorrow. Life's like that. Here's something that struck me while I was out here, though. A lot of people get really good at practicing bushcraft skills, survival skills, whatever you want to call them, in the environment that you find yourself. People from the Northeast, Ohio, the Midwest, whatever, are really good at surviving in that environment, and you would certainly expect that to be true. What I'm going to throw out to you today is to stretch yourself and get to an area you haven't been to before, or at least that you don't go to regularly. All right, in my case, Southeast and the Southwest really couldn't be any more dramatically different. You've got the desert on one hand. We've got so much humidity where I live that the dog's going to mildew if she sleeps on the wrong side of the house. Okay, so entirely different environments. Survival skills are basically the same no matter where you go, but the techniques are going to be different a little bit just depending on where you are and what kind of environment you have. So practice different kinds of skills in different kinds of areas. I know that's not as easy to do as a lot of people would like. I mean, everybody would love to come out to a place like this, or maybe the Pacific Northwest where it rains all the time. And you just don't have the time, the money, whatever. I understand that. I really do. But depending on what it is that you are preparing for, you need to stretch yourself a little bit. It's great to be able to go in your backyard and start a fire and do all the things you need to do. But can you realistically do that somewhere else? Do you have the skills and the stuff that'll help you do what you need to do? I'm much more of a skills guy than a stuff guy, but you got to have the right stuff. You know, you got to have the right tools to get the job done. Does that make sense? I certainly hope so. Now, behind me, I just want to give you a quick look at what I was camping with out here. Very simple. That's my backpack right there in the middle. It's actually packed for travel, not for hiking at the moment. I'm gonna have to take a bunch of this junk out of here. This is the way I pack it for storage and travel, because it's got everything in it, and then I task organize it for what I'm doing at the time. Down here is something interesting. A lot of folks don't really even remember what this thing is anymore. This is a, let me get out in the sunlight here. This is a Svea, I believe it's pronouncing right, S-V-E-A stove. It's made out of brass. There's a burner here in the middle, a little gas tank on the bottom. It uses white gas, Coleman gas, and it's very, very simple. The Swedes came up with this design during the 20s, maybe even earlier. I know that the Norwegian ski troopers that fought the Germans in World War II had something like this. My father brought one back from the war. This is not it, unfortunately. I don't know where that one wound up. But they were originally made for alpining, mountaineering, those kind of things, where you don't have the ability to make a fire. You got to bring a stove. There's no pressure pump on this, as you find on most modern stoves. So there's a bit of a trick to it. There's a couple of videos on YouTube on how to light a Svea stove. It's really pretty simple once you get used to the fact that it's going to look like it's on fire for the first couple of minutes. The downside to this kind of stove is it's designed to boil water quickly. This little stove has already boiled, I don't know, 2 or 3 quarts of water, and that little bitty tank has still got plenty of fuel in it. I'm not sure exactly how long I could go with it. Back in the 70s when I was backpacking a lot, it would last about a week, I think. Something like that, maybe 5 days. It comes with this little pot thing, so you have something with it. I just use that to protect the top. I very seldom cook in it, although I do heat water in it for cleaning. That's what that's for. Another little tidbit that one of those things where if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, but most people don't think about it. This is an Army entrenching tool. In fact, it's a little World War II style with a wooden handle, angled head. Well, you can change how the head's designed. I'm using it here as a windbreak. Obviously you wouldn't want to have it maybe quite that close, but I was using it because the wind was coming from the side, and no matter what kind of stove fire you have, if you let the wind blow the heat out, well, you're wasting most of your fuel. And I just happened to have this around and made a great windbreak for the stove when I was cooking my breakfast. So think about what you've got around you. You don't have to create or even carry with you stuff that you don't need when you probably have something that can be used for it. I mean, I carry the shovel because I need a shovel. For those of you who are not familiar with Army entrenching tools, like I said, this is a World War II version, but you can lock the head either in the shovel position like this, or you can lock it in the they call it a pick, in the angled position, so you can really beat down hard and dig up some dirt. The more modern version of this, the NATO one that I carried when I was in 3rd Armored Division in Germany, same size head, little black handle with a triangular, but that way the whole thing folds up into the space of the head. 6 of one, half dozen of another. I'm not really worried about one way or the other. I had this. In fact, I had 2 of these before I went in the Army. And so I've got one in the truck and one in the car, and I've got one of the NATO ones in our van, because you never know when you need a shovel. That's about it for right now. I'm going to get into some other things a little bit later, but really recommend stretch yourself. Obviously, you got to learn the basics. Learn the basics wherever you are. You need to be able to do all the basics of starting a fire, shelter, all that kind of thing. wherever it is you are. But also don't forget that there are other environments out there that are going to present different challenges, different opportunities, and you need to stretch yourself occasionally and try out some different techniques in different areas. All right? So anyway, this is Cold Warrior 78 from my secret desert training facility. Get back in the woods.